Chapter 381 Medici. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Farid Kingsman had made a deal with the devil to save his skin and the city. He had long begun to lose confidence that he would be able to outclass Raven in battle, especially since his battle tales were so legendary. Hence in a desperate attempt he had contacted the exiled god of the Medici clan to help him win this war and finish off Raven. The Medici clan was the third clan to be exiled and branded a traitor by the vampire king Regus Aurelius since he took over the throne. For 200 years the vampires of that clan had become wanderers unable to show their heads at any official gatherings until recently the leader of the Medici clan, Rose Medici, became a tier 6 god. Once he became a god, he tried to reinstate his clan within the vampire monarchy, but his bid to rejoin was not supported by a single vampire clan, leading to failure. The Medici were a mixed race of vampires and mermaids. They had unstable bloodlust tendencies and had normalized practices such as incest. Being extremely hard to socialize and extremely disgusting to share culture with, they were outlawed by Regus Aurelius after their failure to abolish incest and child marriage. Nobody wanted this clan back in the vampire community. However, in his desperation Farid had promised Rose Medici that in return for saving his planet, he would support his bid to rejoin the vampire monarchy and open the borders of the Kingsman clan to enter into free trade and culture exchange with the Medici clan. On the surface this was their only deal. However, deeper down, Farid had signed a system contract vowing that he would listen to any and all instructions of Rose Medici for 3 years after the war, effectively becoming a vassal and a puppet at his beck and call. For Rose Medici, this was no big deal at all, as for him to deal with an army of tier 4 and 3 was like dealing with an army of ants. Even without the support of the Kingsman soldiers, he alone could effectively wipe the entire army out alone. However, since he needed to be careful of not killing many civilians or Kingsman soldiers, he could not use his most destructive AoE spells and had to express his powers in a moderate fashion. As he scanned the battlefield, he noticed that the strongest enemy was not even directly participating in a fight, but rather protecting the enemy leader from the shadows as Rose Medici locked eyes with Raven, who was hanging on the side of the mage tower, looking at him as well. "How impudent of you to directly look at God, Fall," Rose said as he flared his aura to forcefully make Max lose his grip and fall. Max felt the god's aura around him, as he flared up his own aura as well, trying to combat his will. However, his will shattered like fragile glass in front of the god's power as he felt his grip loosen on the side of the mage tower as he fell down from about the height of a 20-story building. Meanwhile the clone and Asiva was furious when she discovered that 2 of the 5 ships were destroyed and tens of thousands of rebel soldiers were dead. She bravely rallied the remaining soldiers to reinforce those at the front lines. However, she could feel the nervousness and fear amongst the troops who were uncertain about the fight. The morale of the rebel forces was plunging, and although their hot-blooded war preparedness was trumping their fear for now, it was surely not going to last for long. "Who is the enemy?" Asiva asked the clone, knowing that he had Max's ability of scan, as the clone solemnly replied, "Tier 6. Asiva felt her scalp tingle at this response. She had never expected any god to involve themselves with the Kingsman clan's matters. As long as it was an outsider, the Kingsman clan would risk punishment from the king Regus Aurelius to bring foreign gods amidst internal matters. However, if it was not an outsider, then it would mean that the higher-ups had already decided that the rebels could not be allowed to succeed. Either way, the outcome of this war had turned extremely grim because of this sudden interference. "Where is Raven?" Asiva asked, as the clone pointed towards Max's direction and said, "Tell him, I think it's time to enter Phase Omega, send Anna and Zippo for cover." Asiva opened and closed her mouth, not understanding when Max and his clone made a secret code for some secret plan without her knowledge, but understanding that this was not the time for her to be complaining, she nodded and took off in the direction the clone had pointed. The clone on the other hand adjusted his shoulder as he glanced at the direction of the god in the sky, as he let a satisfied grin form on his face. "It's time for the universe to be reminded of the true might of the Rajput family. Shikuni the Terrifying might be dead, but his brother still lives," the clone said in a maniacal voice as he dashed towards the area where the god was. Meanwhile Farid Kingsman, Farid arrived on the battlefield as he brought the two other surviving Tier 5 powerhouses alongside him, looking down on the enemies gathered in Sector 11 as he planned on engaging in battle. There was visible discord between the three Tier 5 powerhouses as they all shared different viewpoints regarding inviting Medici into their affairs, but after an intense debate they had decided that since he was already here the subsequent matters would be decided after the immediate threat of the rebels was solved. Although they did not like this arrangement, the two other Tier 5 warriors had no choice but to follow Farid's plan for now as the three of them descended in battle together. ///////n. Chapter 23 of 40, almost through the day ////// Chapter 382 Firm Decision. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max felt despair in his heart as he saw three extremely strong Tier 5 opponents combining forces as they plowed through hundreds of rebel soldiers at the edge of Sector 11. At this moment he felt his brain turn hazy. He was not strong enough to deal with a Tier 6 god. He similarly did not possess enough confidence in his abilities to defeat three Tier 5 opponents at once. For now, he was thoroughly stuck between a rock and a hard place, and the only hope he could have in this situation was that his clone was alive and had initiated Plan Omega. One of the unfortunate realities of Max's rebel army was that he was the strongest individual in the entire army. While this was good to establish himself at the top of the pecking order, it also meant that he had no one else to rely on for shouldering the burden of such unexpected situations. Although he had Abu and over 200 other Tier 4 warriors under his service, he was the sole individual capable of standing up to existences at Tier 5 and Tier 6 level. Closing his eyes, Max felt his two hearts beat out of his chest, as for a moment he let the chaos, the bloodlust and the madness seep in. When he reopened his eyes he was calm and focused, having made peace with the fact that he might die here today trying his best to overturn this unfavorable situation and capture Dombivli City. Max had no wife or children he needed to worry about, his own parents and brother were already dead and the only relatives he was attached to were well taken care of within the one-night territory. The people who would mourn his death the most were already present around him in the battlefield, and while it would be painful for him and them to lose each other, Max could make peace with knowing that his time with them was limited in the end. The one thing he could not make peace with was letting soldiers who believed in him and his ability to lead them into a life and death battle die in vain. Since he wanted to become king one day, he could not be a spineless leader and escape this battlefield today just to save his skin and try again later. As the captain of this ship it was his destiny to go down with it if need be, hence after accepting the worst outcome possible, Max eliminated the fear factor of today's battle. Raven. At this moment, Max heard a voice he was very familiar with, one that often accompanied him in his sweetest dreams as he saw a blood-covered Asiva running towards him. Max smiled as he felt a huge burden lift off his chest knowing that Asiva had survived the cruel god's attacks. Throwing herself in Max's arms, Asiva lifted his mask ever so slightly to give him a deep and passionate kiss. She was unperturbed by her surroundings as she recognized the danger of today's situation, arriving at a similar conclusion as Max. Even if she died today on this battlefield, having this last kiss she had no more regrets. Eventually as she pulled away from the kiss, her emotional eyes becoming stone cold as she said, "The clone told me that he has initiated Plan Omega, that you shall know what to do. He requests Zippo and Anna to back him up." This information was like music to Max's ears, who felt a glimmer of hope rise in his heart. "Zippo, can you provide my clone with some protection for a while?" Max asked curiously as the shadow under him remained calm as the deep ocean, not replying at all. Eventually he said in a deep voice, "My orders are to not leave you at all times." Max knew he had no time for this nonsense as he said, "Then consider it as me having intimate intercourse with my lovely girlfriend here. I need you to go away for 15 minutes, can you do that?" His contract said that Zippo had to give him space during such scenarios, as although the Black Dragon knew that Max was lying through his teeth, considering the current intense situation he decided to give him some concession. 10 minutes, the shadow said as it left Max's body and blended with the shadow in the nearby alley before disappearing completely. Max stared into Asiva's eyes longingly before putting on a big smile as he said, "You go send Anna to help the clone quickly, I'll come back shortly after gaining a few dozen levels." Asiva nodded, she understood that Max was about to attempt something crazy, but she did not stop him. Being the strong warrior that she was, the only words she said were, "Come back to me with your staff, or on it." In response, Max only winked at her, before storming off with his staff in hand. Meanwhile Rose Medici was thoroughly enjoying himself as he toyed with the few weaklings who tried to oppose him once he had descended to the ground. With every swat of his finger, he killed a few dozen rebel soldiers. For the first time since his ascension he had so much fun, as the unstable bloodline in his body derived utmost pleasure from this madness and bloodlust. Ha 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 ha, although you puny mortals realize that you are in the presence of a god, you still try to resist. How cute. He said as his words caused a stir within the rebel forces. "If I were benevolent, I'd let you all surrender and flee, but I'm not, so I'll kill every last one of you." Ha 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 ha, Medici said as he watched the horror on the rebel soldiers who dropped their weapons and scampered. In his mind, Medici had successfully destroyed enemy morale and was now going to have nothing but easy pickings, but just as he thought everything was going to work out his way, a strong bolt of lightning struck him on the shoulders, making him stagger 2 steps back. Kaboom! 45,000 Medici's shoulder pads sizzled as he looked to be annoyed as if an insect had just zapped him, his eyes zeroing in on a man walking towards him with his hands in his pockets, wearing an extremely arrogant expression on his face. "Who might you be? Mortal?" Medici asked curiously as the clone chuckled. "Commander. It's Commander. Commander is here. Commander will fight a god. Commander has come to the front lines." The shouts of the rebel soldiers more or less confirmed the clone's identity to Medici. "Commander Max Rajput, ha!" Medici said in a degrading manner as he felt that this Tier 4 opponent was nothing special. "I won't ask for your name, fool, because unlike me your name is not even worthy for me to remember. Since you have already dared to kill my men, allow me to present you with a miserable death. Any last words, you twin-eyed bitch?" The clone said with utmost confidence as his arrogance and attitude made even Rose Medici tremble in fear as to what trump card he might be holding. /////A/N. Chapter 2440, that's it from my end for mass release day 6. Thank you everyone who pushed me to the goal today. ////. Chapter 383 Max vs Farid. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max in his original body, currently playing the Captain Raven persona, eventually landed a few meters away from the 3 Tier 5 warriors wreaking havoc on his men. "I think you all have done enough, no more rebel soldiers will die under your hands," Max said as he made his intentions to stop their rampage clear. Farid, who was currently the de facto leader of the Kingsman forces, chuckled when he saw Raven. The leader of the enemy forces had voluntarily delivered himself to his hands for a swift and easy death. "Very well, if you wish for no more rebel soldiers to die, then surrender. I promise your death will be the last one I exact, while your men would become bonded laborers. You should have already sensed the futility of this war. With a god on our side, even if you had 10 times as many troops as us, in the end you would have still lost," Farid said proudly. Max clicked his tongue as he helped an injured rebel soldier get back to his feet. "Go back, clear this area, I'll handle these fine gentlemen alone," Max instructed the soldier who looked moved to be helped by the captain himself. "Yes sir," the soldier said, saluting Max properly before he hobbled away slowly. Converging Sword Strike, Flame Wall. One of the Tier 5 opponents used Converging Sword Strike to catch Max off guard while he was focused on helping the soldier. However, Max felt his move and countered easily with a Flame Wall, blocking the strike effectively. "You really plan on fighting us to death even though it's all meaningless? You should know that even if by some miracle you manage to injure all 3 of us and force us to retreat, there is still no way you are going to be able to fight a god. You are only Tier 3, do you not understand your limitations?" Farid asked in a half-shocked half-mocking tone as he could not wrap his head around the factor that would give one confidence of attempting such a suicidal fight. What Farid did not understand however was that unlike him, Max's strength came from every fiber of his being. Having overcome adversity after adversity to reach the point where he was today, there was no entity under that of a monarch that could make Max yield his fighting spirit completely. Kaboom! At this moment a huge lightning strike struck someone on the battlefield a few hundred meters away as Max smiled knowing who ordered that attack. With madness visible in his eyes, Max made a statement that made the 3 Tier 5 warriors feel their bones go cold. If you want, we can resume our battle after Commander Max slays your god. Farid was the first to shake off the feeling of gloom as he charged towards Max, while the other 2 Tier 5 warriors were a split second slower to follow. In response Max activated Flame Armor and Giant Summoning to even the odds out of this battle. His body suddenly combusted into flames as he transitioned into a walking furnace, with 3 giants standing behind him who suddenly appeared by tearing the earth apart. Farid used a sword attack, but was blocked by Max at point-blank range with his runic bone staff, as while the duo exchanged looks of animosity, Max opened his mouth and suddenly breathed fire. Dragon's Breath, the attack blasted Farid back for about 15 meters as it damaged his armor and burnt off his hair. 55,000. The other 2 Tier 5 warriors were busy fighting the giants, who packed even simple punches with extreme strength, making it difficult for them to maintain equal footing with the beasts. What the fuck are you? No vampire can do that. Farid exclaimed as he brushed off the flames on his body, frowning as he looked at Max. He's Captain fucking Raven, bitch, a shout replied from the sky. As the moment Farid looked towards the sky, he saw 2 dragons, one yellow and one green, flying, as there rained down fire onto the battlefield. Seeing the grave situation, Sebastian and Asiva had decided to pull out their mounts as they decided to deal back equal amounts of damage that were caused to their army to the enemy troops, while tactically providing help to both Max and Raven in battle. Dragons. The Tier 5 warrior commented, as he blocked a fist punch by the giant. The corresponding shockwave caused the windows of many surrounding houses to shatter, as the screams of commoners could be heard, clearly afraid of this development. Very well, if it's entertainment that you seek, it is entertainment that you shall get. Farid said as he began preparing a Tier 5 attack. Subsequently Max also began compressing the Inferno spell, as 3 seconds later he and Farid unleashed their attacks together. Kingsman Sword Art. 7th move. Blazing Phoenix Strike, Fire Compression. Inferno. Farid unleashed a terrifying sword attack that took the form of a blazing phoenix as it moved towards Max with so much force that the paved road underneath was destroyed just by its passing energy. On the other hand, Max's Inferno was like a condensed whirlpool of fire, not even the slightest energy leaked out. When the 2 attacks collided, a bright fiery explosion took place whose aftermath created a crater of about 100 meters diameter. Several houses were destroyed, as sewage and water pipelines were ruptured. The eyes of every soldier in the vicinity was drawn towards this fight, as they saw a figure of a confident Captain Raven calmly looking down on a gaping Commander Farid. The Blazing Phoenix was a Tier 5 attack, and Farid had no idea how Raven, a Tier 3 warrior, possessed the strength to neutralize it. To him, this defied all sense and logic. After this encounter Farid had to readjust his evaluation of Max, as he once again asked in a puzzled manner, what exactly are you? //////A/N. A New Day, Chapter 25 40ths, can we hit the target even though I started so late today? /////. Chapter 384 Angakok descends. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I won't ask for your name, fool, because unlike me your name is not even worthy for me to remember. Since you have already dared to kill my men, allow me to present you with a miserable death. Any last words, you twin-eyed bitch? The clone posing as Max Rajput said with utmost confidence, as his arrogance and attitude made even Rose Medici tremble in fear as to what trump card he might be holding. Becoming vigilant, Medici prepared to observe what Max was up to as he did not make any rash decisions. When Max was a little boy, he had once spent the night with his brother as he was planning for an upcoming guild war. Being a small child of 10.11 years of age, he could not understand what stress meant or what responsibilities his brother truly shouldered, but since his brother found his presence comforting, he silently sat in his office munching on snacks as he drew battle plans. It was there that Rudra had advised Max, that when planning for war there should always be a plan A, which is the ideal situation. Plan B, which is when some small things went out of expectations and needed to be contained. Plan C when one needed to retreat and minimize losses, and Plan Omega when everything went wrong and retreat was not an option. Basically, Plan Omega was a Hail Mary where either won big or lost it all. Years later, when Max was planning his first large-scale war, he somehow remembered this scenario as he subsequently designed Plan A, B, C, and Omega. The clone had received instructions from him to activate all 4 plans when responding to the situation, and since the two of them shared a similar judgment process, the clone naturally understood upon landing on Dombivli that everything had gone south and he needed to activate Plan Omega. When the clone activated Plan Omega, it was decided that he would never merge back with Max again, as the only way out of the fight was death. Max had taught him the chant to summon the ancient god Angakok, and when activating Plan Omega, the clone was under instructions to become the god's medium and borrow his power to resolve whatever problem there might be. This was a dangerous method. Also, summoning an existence like Angakok in the middle of a war meant that he would expend a shitton of mana which Max would need to pay back. A cost that was not easy to bear with his current financial condition. However, regardless of how bad the deal was for him, it was infinitely worse for his enemies who had to face the wrath of Angakok. Curling his lips into a tiny smile, the clone chanted under his breath, "O Holy One, the progenitor of all shamans, your descendants call for your help. In exchange for my vitality, my mana and my vigor, grant me your immense powers, for my enemies need to be destroyed. Heed my call, for I know your name, Angakok, the shaman god, the enslaver of the Kraken, and the slayer of the sea god Poseidon. Heed my call." As the clone said these words, a whirlpool of mana concentrated around its body, as its consciousness was wiped out, being replaced by the ancient shaman god. For a moment Angakok was shocked to see the traces of the Agni Astra removed from Max's body, but when he realized it was a divine-level substitute and not Max's original body, he was impressed by the progress of his chosen to get his hands on such a powerful move. When Angakok awoke in the clone's body, turning Max's eye color from red to deep purple, the surrounding temperature of the battlefield dropped by a few degrees as he coldly looked into the eyes of the Tier 6 god in front of him. The power Max's body emanated at this instance was several times higher than just a moment ago, as Rose Medici could not understand how he powered up so much in such a short while. "Your petty tricks won't work on me, no matter how much you raise your power level. The gap between you and me cannot be bridged," Rose Medici said arrogantly as he conjured a Tier 6 wind attack called Shredded Tornado. A massive tornado that could destroy entire Sector 11 within seconds formed between the two hands of Rose Medici as the subsequent air currents it formed caused many small objects and weapons from all over the city to start flying into the air. The Tier 6 attack forced the nearby battle to be stopped as soldiers, regardless of which side they belonged to, clinged onto the nearest solid object so as to not be swept away by the wind. "Die," Medici said as he unleashed the move towards Angakok. The shaman god looked at the move as if observing a toy. If he were in his original body he could have crushed this attack and killed Medici in a single strike, but since he was conformed to this Tier 4 body he could only dispel it for now. Wormhole. A giant hole appeared in the space in front of Angakok as the fabric of reality fractured. The powerful wind attack conjured by Medici was sucked down the wormhole like water washed down a sink, with not even the slightest wind disturbance left after 10 seconds. Medici looked at his attack being sucked off in horror as he could not wrap his head around how such a scene was possible. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he stared into Angakok's creepy eyes and confident smile. "Is that all you got, boy? I haven't stretched my hands in a while. Come entertain me more." Angakok said in a deep and primal voice that was heard throughout the city. Although he did not shout it loud at all, it was only now that Medici realized, the other party was not bluffing at all when he said he would kill him. This was a life and death battle. /////A/N. Chapter 26 of 40, I think we will make it. /////. Chapter 385. What are you? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Raven's POV. Max had established that he was not to be messed with. However, his 3 giants had also been killed in combat against the 2 tier 5 warriors. Although they were able to stall the 2 for a valuable 5 minutes of mayhem, causing both of them to lose about 15% of their total HP, they could not hold out for any longer. This meant that now he had expended all 3 of his number-increasing skills in the form of Netherbeast Summoning, Giant Summoning and Perfect Clone, which left him to face these 3 powerhouses alone. On the bright side, Sebastian and Asiva were currently wreaking havoc on the battlefield with their dragons, causing the enemy side to suffer major losses. On the worse side, he did not even have Zippo to protect him for a while if things went wrong, since he had sent him to help the clone in his fight against the god. Hence, he needed to be careful to not die in this short duration until Zippo's return, while parrying the 3 tier 5 opponents at once. With his display of strength in neutralizing Farid's attack, none of the 3 opponents took him lightly anymore, being wary of his every movement and treating him with utmost sincerity. Together at 3, one of the 3 tier 5 opponents said as the 3 of them mentally calculated to 3 before charging at Max from 3 different directions. Calmly observing the situation, Max created a flame wall to stall the first opponent, while using flame shield to block the second one's attack to his abdomen as he personally parried Farid's aim to chop off his neck. 45,000 Max was sent flying backwards by his opponent's kick to his sternum as he felt one of his ribs crack under the force of the strike. The opponent's foot caught on fire as an effect of the flame armor, dealing some burn damage on him, but his situation was much better than Max's. Martial arts master, Drax murmured in his mind, as he warned Max to be careful against that particular swordsman who was also adept in physical combat. Not giving him any quarter, the trio rushed at Max once again, pelting him under a barrage of consistent attacks as Max felt like he was back inside Dragon's Paradise training with Kremeth as he dodged as much as possible using Way of the Wind. Although he was able to avoid critical injuries, Max was scratched and bruised consistently as it was clear that he was on the losing end of this battle. Not good, Max thought as he used Energy Blast to send one opponent staggering backwards, while he used Dragon's Breath to force Farid to evade. Backflipping, he created distance from the third opponent, as once he was confident of the space between them he turned and began to run at a fast speed. Fuck, I could have used the Wind God's shoes at this moment, Max thought as he wistfully thought that he might be able to flee into the sky had he chosen Wind God's boot as his item before. The trio was hot on his pursuit, as they did not intend to let Max gather his thoughts. What they did not understand however was that by pursuing Max, they were falling straight for his trap. Brainwash, 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 brainwash. Regardless of the tier of the Kingsman soldier that he passed by, Max quickly used Brainwash to trigger the probability of controlling them, and while he failed a few times he was successful in controlling 7-10 men he touched. Suddenly, the 3 pursuers found that their pursuit had turned incomparably difficult as their own soldiers attacked them out of the blue. 70,000 critical hit. One of the soldiers even managed to catch Farid completely off guard, plunging his spear into his own commander's abdomen, as Farid killed him mercilessly. How merciless, he's turning our own men against us, Farid spoke as he took out the plunged spear from his abdomen and drank a HP potion. Due to Max's ingenious interference, the pursuit of his opponents was significantly slowed down, until they found Max standing calmly in a particularly desolate plaza. Max had pulled his opponents away from all the way in District 11 where the major fight was ongoing to District 13 where the fight was more or less already over. Dead bodies were everywhere as a strong scent of blood was strewn across the plaza where a bloody battle had taken place half an hour ago. Farid watched in shock, as the bruises on Max's skin healed automatically, as he was sure his eyes were playing tricks on him since the enemy had not drunk any health potions at all. Max's passive healing ability had triggered itself, since he was standing on a large pool of blood, as he had purposefully lured his enemies to this plaza as this was the one place where he could express his strength to the fullest extent. "Why did you suddenly stop running?" one of the 3 Tier 5 warriors asked as he could see the visible change in the opponent's body language. The man feared that Max had rigged the area with some explosives of sorts, and that they were walking straight into some sort of a trap. Max did not reply to their question, instead only patiently waited for them to walk closer to a nearby pool of blood. "I'll go ahead, cover me if there are any anomalies," a Tier 5 warrior said as Farid nodded and immediately became on guard. The Tier 5 warrior slowly walked towards Max, putting every step very carefully on the ground below. AGH.120.000 Suddenly he heard a scream from his partner behind him, as he turned to see in horror that the man had lost his left leg. It was amputated by some undetectable attack as blood was rapidly spraying everywhere from his wound. The man fell to his knee as he had similarly gotten his right leg chopped off by what felt like an energy blade. The only person to catch a glimpse of what happened was Farid, as he could not put what he saw to words. The pool of blood beside them had suddenly given birth to a blood blade that shot out with immense speed and took off his partner's legs. There was absolutely no time to detect or react to the attack because of the sheer close proximity from where it was generated and the speed at which it dissipated. Instinctively running away from the pool of blood, Farid opened and closed his mouth several times before asking Max the same question for the 3rd time, this time in absolute horror and terror. Just what are you? Meanwhile Benedict had finally managed to shake off his Kingsman pursuers and reach the area near the battlefield. From some soldiers he had received notice that commanded Max was in Sector 11 and battling a strong opponent, as he started his livestream to residents of Earth on planet Radiance, looking to interfere with Max's death at the critical moment. His stream was titled, Killing Max Rajput, and had 22,000 people watching live with the number of viewers increasing rapidly every minute. //////n. Chapter 27 of 40, almost done /////. Chapter 386 Angakok's True Powers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Benedict was filled with glee at the idea of killing Max, as he waddled through a sea of fights between rebel and Kingsman forces before reaching the area where Max was fighting Rose Medici. For about 100 meters around the duo, there was no signs of any soldiers, as everyone seemed to be peacefully watching the fight unfold from a safe distance. Benedict looked into the purple eyes of Max, and felt a shiver run down his spine as he found those eyes to be ancient and scary. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. "Is that all you got, boy? I haven't stretched my hands in a while. Come entertain me more." At this moment Angakok taunted his opponent, as Benedict could not help but frown. "Look at him, Earthlings," Max, a 21.22-year-old male, calling the dude opposite him, boy. "I mean, look at the level of hypocrisy in this individual, he's clearly age-phobic," Benedict murmured as he tried to incite his readers to take a negative stance against Max. "Very well. Since you asked for it, I shall show you the true power of a god," Rose Medici replied, as Benedict felt shivers go down his spine. "God? What do you mean, God?" Benedict wondered, as he watched from the sidelines as Medici gathered enough power to blow the entire Dombivli city to smithereens. "You want to see my full power? Here it is. I hope you can handle the ancient technique of the mermaid clan," Medici said with a furious expression as he summoned a true storm. Thick black clouds formed over the city as a tumultuous rain began downpouring large quantities of water. Howling winds several times stronger than before swept away everything in its path as Benedict was forced to lay flat on his stomach and try his best to not be blown away with the winds into the sky. In front of his very eyes a few weak Tier 1 individuals were swept away by the furious winds as they were incinerated to ashes by the lightning storm above. Soon, the storm started to recede in size as one could visibly see every single vein on Medici's body pop as he desperately tried to control the power of the storm. Lost move. Poseidon's wrath. Medici was exhausted as he barely gained control over his conjured storm, unleashing all its power to a single point as he attacked Max with the strongest move in his arsenal. Poseidon's wrath was an attack created by the sea god himself during the Chaos Era and was an attack that all races were afraid of. When the sea god died, the full knowledge of this attack was thought to be lost with the sands of time. However, the mermaid clan actually had a scroll preserving the attack's true nature. In this day and age the attack strength was at the very peak of Tier 6 and could be considered one of the best offensive Tier 6 attacks. However, unfortunately for Medici, the man he had chosen to attack with this spell was the same man who had once slain Poseidon himself. "Oh, it's been a while since I've seen this one," Angekok muttered with a smile as he raised his pinky finger and put a single fist forward. As Benedict saw and recorded the terrifying scene, millions of Earthlings watched this moment as well as they saw the devastating storm attack, touch the tip of Max's finger before diffusing into a bunch of fresh flowers, as if everything right now was but a magic trick. Nature's mercy. Under the rain of flowers, Angekok remained unaffected as he let them gently brush over his skin, relishing their scent and feel. However, the horror Medici felt in his heart was incomparable. Medici fell flat on his bum, as he instinctively moved away from Angekok, muttering under his breath that this was all a dream and that this was impossible. In Medici's mind, the attack he had just summoned was a genuine planetary-level threat attack. Something that could destroy entire countries if left unchecked, yet it was tamed by the little finger of his opponent. Such an outcome was impossible to achieve even if the other party was a monarch. Such strength defied the realm of common sense. When Medici eventually looked into Angekok's eyes, he realized that this was not a Tier 4 opponent that he was facing, but some ancient monster in disguise, as at this moment he had but one thought, which was to flee immediately. Not wasting a single second, he got back on his feet and tried to make a run for it, but found his body to be weightless as he could not move a single centimeter. "I told you, boy. There's no way I'm letting you go," Angekok said calmly as he used one of his old-school attacks. Black prison. Black mass surrounded Medici, solidifying into a black ball of unknown material origins which completely enraptured Medici's figure. At first, his howls and screams were still audible, but as the ball solidified, nothing was visible nor audible, as if there was nothing inside the orb at all. Just like that, Angekok had captured a Tier 6 god. Meanwhile on planet Radiance, the Earthlings, holy shit, that's Max. Max is taking on a god. Fuck. Is this really a Sigma battle? I haven't seen such intense action since Omega ended. This OP existence is being toyed around by Max and our boy Benedict thinks he can kill him. Fool. This fight reminds me of Shikuni. Max really is like his brother. Holy smokes, Black Prison. Isn't that the same move Lucifer used to imprison Hades at the end of the Holy War in Omega? Fucking hell, me and Max are the same age. I thought I was working hard to level up every day, but look at the difference between me and him, it's like heaven and earth. Don't blame yourself too much, nobody can catch up to the Rajputs, it's in their blood. More fight. The way he dispelled the storm attack was so freaking cool. That's it, I'm on the Max cult from now. Although I have no idea what he had been doing since the start of Sigma, it's bound to be something epic. Look at how powerful he's become. The strongest human for sure. All hail Max, the strongest of our kind. ///////n. Chapter 28 of 40, Day 7 done right. FYI. Guys, we slipped to rank 11 in GT today for a while before climbing back up. Month end is near, can we hold on to 10th? /////. Chapter 387 The Tides of War. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max's POV, Farid was not sure who conjured the blood attacks. He did not sense any mana fluctuations from Max's end, and also did not find anyone in the nearby vicinity who could have interfered with the battle. The simulations in his mind ran at quick speed, as he checked and rechecked his surroundings for signs of any hidden warrior, but could find none. As the options were eliminated one after another, Farid finally dawned upon a horrifying conclusion that he absolutely did not dare to believe. Bloodline ability. Every high-ranking vampire knew about the tale of the primordial vampires, the true progenitors of the vampire race, those whose bloodline ability was the strongest amongst all. Being the masters of blood itself, they wielded the forbidden move, blood manipulation. Legends were spoken about the unstoppable primordial vampire army who were unstoppable on any battlefield as they wielded blood as a weapon, which could both heal them and kill their opponents. It was said that the strongest primordial vampires could make even a god explode with just a touch, while the more sinister ones could make the blood inside a body completely evaporate, leaving it a shriveled corpse who experienced the most horrible death. It was rumored that the primordial vampire race was crazy, their bloodlust was insatiable, and once their satiety index dropped below a point, they would become no different from beasts. It was for this reason that the ex-vampire king after the Chaos Era gave the order to hunt all primordial vampires and their descendants down. When Rumi Titus ascended to the throne, the old prophet in his court had made a prophecy that the modern vampires were only keepers of the throne, that one day a primordial vampire will rise again and claim his spot at the top of the food chain, but whether or not him ascending to the top will bring happiness or misery to the vampire clan, it was unknown. A prophet's words were never clear, but to serve his purpose Regus Aurelius had declared that the primordial vampire mentioned in the destiny was a plaque, an existence who will plunge the modern vampire society to its doom, and hence there was a current social bias against his kind. Be nov calm, why you are a primordial vampire. The race outlawed by the king. You should not be left alive. Farid said in a terrified manner as Max chuckled looking at his fear. Who do you think will report to the others that I'm a primordial vampire? Because there is nobody around here, and I'm not planning on letting the three of you who know my secret live, Max said as he summoned chains of blood and controlled them to seal every exit path, converting the plaza into a sealed dome. Inside the dome, he was left alone with two one-legged tier 5 warriors and Farid to deal with. Although they had health potions on them, it was useless for situations such as loss of limbs, as while the potion could help accelerate the sealing of the open wound, it would not regrow the chopped-off leg. Hence grinding their teeth, the two tier 5 warriors showed character as they struggled back to their single feet, and tacitly decided that Max had to be hunted down here and now, before he became a threat to the entire vampire race. Meanwhile Benedict's POV, after sealing Medici, the purple-eyed Max seemed to scan his surroundings for a while, before determining that there was no immediate danger as his demeanor began to crumple and a large amount of mana dissipated from his body. Falling to his knees, Max finally appeared more like a normal warrior than an ancient entity, as Benedict realized that this was his chance to kill Max. Whatever terrifying skill that Max had used moments ago was finally over, and it seemed to have left him in a seriously debuffed state. However, before he could take a single step, an elf and a dude with black hair, black yes and an extremely mean-looking face huddled around Max, warning any approaching Kingsman soldiers to maintain their distance or dying. When Benedict tried to move a single muscle as he retrieved his special legendary grade treasure, the soul-devouring dagger, he saw 3 arrows shot right in front of his hands as the elf woman seemed to be staring straight at him. In the elf woman's eyes was a clear rage, the same kind that was seen when a mother lioness was defending her cubs. However, since the age difference between Max and her was not much, Benedict understood that the protective feeling was out of love. Although the woman said no words, her glare was enough to let Benedict know that if he did anything funny she would not hesitate to kill him then and there. With thousands of vampires surrounding the area, she was specifically focused on him as if she had already sensed that his presence here was the most sinister. Is this what they call a woman's intuition? Benedict wondered as he saw with his own eyes how the black-haired guy put the exhausted Max over his shoulders and sprinted out of the area towards the sea of rebel soldiers. Deafening chants of, "Our commander slayed a god. Clap clap clap, our commander slayed a god. Clap clap clap," spread throughout the battlefield as it infused a new level of confidence into the rebel army. With the god on the enemy side neutralized, the rebel army charged ahead as if it had just gotten new wings, as it tore through Kingsman defenses like they were made of paper. Asiva and Sebastian strategically targeted the Kingsman defensive blockades and their healer camps, creating menace and chaos on the battlefield for the rebel soldiers to capitalize on. With Medici's death, the tide of the war had shifted once more, transforming into a tsunami favoring the rebel army. /////A/N. Chapter 29 of 40, A New Day, Let's Go Get It Boys. Special shout out to Cervantes 91 and Alcat_Gaming, two of my long-time patrons, for their support on the GT matter yesterday. Although I'm unable to give out the consequent bonuses at the moment, I'll definitely find an opportunity to give them in April. ////. Chapter 388 The Price of God's Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Anna's POV. Anna watched over the clone's body as the other writhed in pain as he rolled over on the floor. If Anna didn't already know that this individual was not the real Max, she would probably be shedding tears at his truly pitiful state and be scrambling to help him alleviate some of his pain. The clone was a brave warrior, who did not only have Max's intelligence and demeanor but also his guts, as until he was sure that nobody was around, he did not let a single scream of pain escape his mouth, maintaining the dignity of Commander Max till the last second. Only when Zippo safely brought him outside the confines of District 11 all the way to District 3's desolate alley, did he finally let out a blood-wrenching scream originating from the depths of his very soul. The moment Angakok left, this body showed signs of internal breakdown as everything began to tear down. Angakok seemed to have realized that this was a clone's body and not that of his chosen, as he did not restrain his strength at all when performing his feats of magic. The clone was sure his mana circuit had ruptured at various parts due to mana overload, his intestines had a tear, and blood was leaking inside his body from so many locations that even with blood manipulation, he was not able to control it properly. Every fiber of his being burnt with such intense heat that he wanted to plunge his body into an ice bath and drink cold water, but instead his body puked out green bile juices as his stomach violently convulsed, causing his ruptured intestine to hurt even more. Anna winced. She could truly not see the clone's pain as she chose to close her eyes and ignore his cries of pain. "This is the price of borrowing the power of a god in a mortal's body," Zippo murmured as he took out a ceremonial blade from his inventory. The orders from Max were clear. Although he would not be able to gain insights from the clone's battle with Medici, once Plan Omega was initiated he was never going to merge with his clone again. Max did not want the psychological horrors of Angakok's descent and the memories of the subsequent pain, so the clone could only be killed here in the alley. "Do it. Free me," the clone murmured, as Zippo brought the blade to his neck and slit his throat, giving him a quick death in a matter of seconds. Instead of going cold, the clone's body disintegrated into mana from which it was created. As soon there was no trace left in the alley that it was the place where Commander Max had been murdered. Only the blood and the green bile vomit remained as the elf and dragon duo walked out of the alley to return to Captain Raven, the real body, which did not have the luxury of dying if in pain and might need their help. Farid's POV. Farid knew he was facing a monster now. The initial battle, which seemed easy as a 3-on-1, had turned on its head. Not only was the enemy successful in maiming and reducing the mobility of his partners, but was also standing in a battlefield perfectly suited for his fighting needs. Dhaka, we only need to stall for time. Medici will notice us and undoubtedly come over soon, Farid said as he tried to calm the raging blood of his two partners who looked hellbent on killing Max then and there. Farid was sure in his mind that Medici would single-handedly plow through the battlefield and destroy the rebel army before eventually finding the four of them here. However, it was at this moment that he heard distant chants singing, "Our commander slayed a god. Clap clap clap, our commander slayed a god. Clap clap clap." The sound seemed to be coming from the direction of Sector 11, and he could not believe his ears when he heard it. "What trickery is this? What illusion are you casting on me?" Farid questioned Max, convinced that it was a ploy by that man to throw him off his game. Farid absolutely rejected the notion that Medici could fall in battle, as he convinced himself that the sounds coming from outside were nothing but cheap trickery meant to distract him, as he calmed his heart and decided to ignore it. Max on the other hand did believe it, as he understood that the shaman god Engekok had lived up to his reputation and put the unknown god to his place. Sighing deeply, Max's figure looked like it had just shed a heavy psychological burden, as his already crazy eyes turned more carefree when he looked towards his three opponents. A fire of hope had ignited in his heart as he understood that Plan Omega was a success so far. This meant that if he was able to kill the three opponents present here, and somehow return to the front lines to fight, there was still hope to capture Dombivli City. Since Commander Max has killed a god, how can I not do my bit in this matter? Naturally I have to do my absolute best, Max said as he put the runic bone staff back inside his inventory and summoned 2 fireballs in both his fists before compressing them by merging his hands together. Compressed Fireblast. Max blasted a compressed fireball towards Farid, as he conjured blood spikes and used them to create non-stop attacks towards Doha and Daka, the 2 one-legged warriors. With their mobility seriously reduced, Doha and Daka struggled to dodge the strikes, as while they blocked a few others grazed them. With the tides of war changing, the hunter had become the prey, as Max started to give his all to end this fight. He was prepared to pull off every last stop to end this fight while he had the upper hand. /////A/N. Chapter 30 of 40, Today I'm on a roll, ////. Chapter 389 Mercy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max went absolutely wild with his powers once he realized that the freaky god was dead and the only people who could turn the tide of war were the 3 men in front of him. If the god was dead, it meant that Zippo and Anna were on their way back to cover him, evening out the odds of the battle, which meant that he no longer needed to conserve his strength or worry about dying. He could go all out, and cause maximum damage. Fireball, Fireball, Blood Spike, Fireball, Fireblast, Fireblast, Blood Chains, Inferno, Blood Blades, Energy Blast, Inferno, Fireball, Fireblast, Fire Compression. Fireblast. Max went absolutely wild with his barrage of attacks, bombarding each of his enemies with non-stop spells that forced them on the back foot. While Farid was only pushed back because of the attack, Daka was knocked off balance because of a fireblast and fell flat on his back, after which he could not parry the subsequent attacks properly, causing him to take significant amounts of damage, plunging his HP bar to yellow levels. Sword Art. 3-strike combo. Doha used Sword Art, a tier 4 attack, to unleash 3 symmetrical sword slashes towards Max, forcing him to either block the strike or take damage, as the 3 parallel symmetrical strikes gave him no room to dodge. Disperse. Max tried to disperse the attack, but his accuracy was a bit off and the attempt failed, as he took a bit of damage from the move. 55,000. A gushing wound appeared on his chest under the flame armor, but not a single drop of blood fell as Max controlled his body perfectly. Stepping into a puddle of blood, Max slowly began to regain his HP as he restarted his barrage of attacks. Just as Daka began to stir again and tried to conjure another move, Max took him by surprise as he used Lightning Strike. Kaboom! 97,500 critical hit. Thunder crackled and a thick thunderbolt landed on Daka's body, causing severe damage to the legless tier 5 warrior, who was stunned by the fact that Max had control over a lightning domain spell. His already yellow HP plunged to a dark red, tethering at the edge of life and death as he looked towards his allies for support to give him room to recover. Farid acted instantly, as he unleashed his strongest attack, in an attempt to save Daka. Special move. Howling Screecher. A purple sword chi moved towards Max with a particularly disturbing sound frequency. The closer the attack got to Max, the more he felt the urge to close his eyes and cover his ears, as the attack made him feel like his ears were bleeding. However, fighting back against that urge, Max let the attack come near him as he boldly used Disperse once again. This time Max was successful, as he grasped the imperfection of the attack perfectly, dispelling it into nothingness effortlessly. Inferno. The poor Daka who had just opened a bottle of HP potion and put it to his lips did not have enough time to recover as the Inferno attack hit its target and took away the last bit of HP that he possessed before he could heal. System notification. You have killed a Tier 5 warrior, Daka, title. Fingerbreaker inside a battle zone. You have received 180,000 EXP, no, Farid shouted, but it was pointless as his friend's soul had already departed for the afterlife. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Take this. Sword art. 3-strike combo. Doha tried the same move again, feeling agitated at the death of his friend, but at this moment just as he was targeting Max, an archer was targeting him from a distance. Shwa 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 3 power shots, moved at considerable speeds towards the crippled Doha through the arm-sized gaps in the blood chain structure Max had created to imprison the 3 opponents he was facing. Doha, who had just unleashed an attack, found himself in a tough position to defend as he could only barely deflect the first arrow, while diverting the second one to hit his shoulder rather than his heart, as the third one hit him clean on his forehead. .100,000 critical hit. Doha's HP quickly fell, as he felt immense pain from a fractured skull and an arrow sticking in his brain. If he were a normal human, he would have lost consciousness and died by now, but he was a powerful Tier 5 warrior with incredible vitality, which was the only reason he did not die on the spot. Watch out! Farid shouted, but it was already too late as Max had already closed in on Doha's location, placing a hand around his neck as he used his attack, blood explosion. The internal capillaries of Doha burst, as his HP plunged to 0, giving the mighty Kingsman warrior a cold and fast death. System notification. You have killed a Tier 5 warrior, Doha, inside a battle zone. You have received 160,000 EXP. Max glanced at the system notification, before looking at his shadow which had darkened significantly once more as he smiled. Zippo and Anna were here. He finally had support. And then there was one. Max said as he walked calmly towards Farid, who looked aghast. Without any hesitation, Farid turned his attention from Max to the bloody chains covering the plaza as he began hacking at the chains with his sword in an attempt to cut through them and find a way to escape. At first Farid made a few solid hacks at the structure, but once Max caught onto his intentions, he reinforced that section with more and more chains until it almost became a solid wall of blood blocking Farid. Desperate, Farid turned and began wildly swinging at Max, who beautifully weaved through his strikes as he kicked his sword hand hard, knocking his blade out of his right hand and onto the floor. Kneel! Max commanded as he let his aura suppress Farid to the extreme, as the Tier 5 enemy leader reluctantly fell to his knees. Mercy! Farid pleaded as he closed his eyes and lowered his head, hoping that Max found it in his heart to let him live. He had tried his best to fight this monster, but he had also realized that he was no match for this primordial vampire, not when he was fighting in a bloody battlefield. /////A/N. Chapter 31 of 40, almost through the day ////. Chapter 390. Interesting information. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mercy, begged Farid as he lost all hopes of defeating Max. Instantly Max's impression of this Tier 5 warrior crumpled, as he understood that inside all that hoax of being a commander, as a man Farid was hollow. A real warrior made his enemy tremble even when at the doors of death. As a child, Max's father used to tell him the tale of the mighty warriors of the Rajput clan, the kings of the past known for their unmatched valor. It was said that the bravest of all the Rajput kings, Rajendra Rajput, was a warrior whose body kept instinctively fighting his enemy for 45 seconds after his head was decapitated over his shoulders. Even when dying, he clutched his sword and kept swinging at his enemies, only truly falling in combat once his blood ran cold. After his death for a full 5 minutes, none of his enemies dared approach his corpse, such was the fear he instilled in their hearts. Having idolized such men growing up, Max could not respect cowards like Farid at all, who despite being the commander of the army and a mighty Tier 5 existence were spineless at their core. Why should I show you mercy? Max asked Farid in an emotionless tone, as he waited for Farid to try to convince him. Farid stuttered and scrambled, gathering his thoughts as he said, "If you spare me, I'll give you everything. All the money I've hidden, about 2.5 billion gold coins. I'll tell you all Kingsman clan secrets and teach you all the forbidden moves. I'll become your mentor to the vampire clan's social world and help you stabilize your reign as lord. I'll control riots for you, make sure the economy runs smoothly. Please just spare me, I promise I'll make myself useful to you." Falling on his nose, Farid began to kiss Max's feet as he shed crocodile tears, hoping that the cold vampire would be moved and spare his life. "Fine. Prove it, prove to me that you will be useful if I keep you alive. Tell me where you've hidden your money stash and one Kingsman clan secret, in return I'll let you live. But if you dare lie to me," Max said in a dangerous tone as Farid gulped a mouthful of saliva. "My stash, it's hidden in the Doldrum Motel. Inside the motel's kitchen there is a hidden basement, where I've stashed all the money as gold bars. The motel is in Sector 4, don't kill me please, you can go verify it now if you want to. As for the Kingsman clan secret, my brother will strongly supported Marcus Aurelius's rise to throne, but after his fall from grace we are supporting second Prince Lucius Aurelius in his appointment to be named Crown Prince. Just after the clan assessment in 1 year's time, Ixtal's revolutionary cycle around its star will complete a full cycle, and it would be time for the ancient dungeon in the ice glaciers to open. The goal this time is to go past boss monster number 7 and retrieve the secret artifact. Although it's not made public, inside news suggest whichever prince is able to retrieve that artifact will be named the next crown prince. The 36 vampire clans under the monarchy have already started to align themselves amongst the 2 princes, and except for Vega Titus who plans of usurping the throne, everyone's waiting for who receives Julian Caesar's support. So far the top 3 clans have not shown interest in the succession race, but it might change soon. Farid said nervously as he hoped that this information was enough to exchange for his life. Just moments ago, he was planning to kill Max because he was a vampire clan enemy and a primordial vampire by race. However, the moment he had to choose between his clan and his neck, he chose the latter, becoming a songbird and leaking all the clan's secrets. Max showed no emotion, as he calmly processed Farid's words and internally degraded the evaluation of the man even further. Someone who could not even be loyal to his own origins had zero chance of being loyal to an outsider like Max. Since he knew his secret of being a primordial vampire, Max had long decided to kill him, but since he could be milked for benefits, Max played this short game of charades with him. "Rise," Max said as he offered Farid his hand, allowing the warrior to raise his head as he smiled brightly towards Max with his crocodile tear-filled eyes. "Thank you for sparing me, my lord, your trust in me means everything to M." Farid had only started his flattery session, when he felt something was wrong with his body as he suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood. Blood manipulation, holding his opponent's hand tight, Max thoroughly began destroying critical veins as he gave Farid the most painful death imaginable. With bloodshot eyes, Farid stared at Max with intense hatred, however, towards his hate Max was indifferent. Having no faith in a man like Farid, Max had long decided to not rear snakes in his own backyard. He had to die, and while Max could make it painless, he deliberately made it excruciating because in his mind it was what Farid deserved. 3 minutes later, due to a clogged lung and air passage, Farid Kingsman died on the battlefield. System notification. You have killed a Tier 5 warrior, Farid, inside the battle zone Dombivli. Since the player belongs to the same faction, EXP reward will be adjusted. You have received plus 200,000 EXP. Looking at the notification, Max smiled. With Farid's death he had removed all the Tier 5 opponents on the enemy's side and could not finally hope for a smooth road to victory. Removing all the blood chains sealing the area, Max let Anna in, who immediately rushed to his aid with a stamina potion bottle to help him recover some strength. "What's the frontline situation?" Max asked worriedly as he chugged down the stamina potion bottle. "It's in our favor, but we can use a healer over a damage dealer, Anna said as she placed Max's hand over her shoulder and supported his weight as the two began walking towards the front lines. After checking and double-checking that there were no witnesses around of his blood manipulation skill, friend or foe, Max left Sector 13 clinching victory. /////A/N Chapter 3240, Day 8 Done Right, //